Guess what? Discover's accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. You heard right, 99%. If you don't think so, maybe it's time to face facts. You're stuck in the past. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen report. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard.
Let's talk about a small thing that can make a big difference if you have diabetes, the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor. It's amazing how the sensor gives you real-time glucose readings so you can see the impact of every meal and activity to make better choices.
The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor can help you live life with diabetes on your terms. This is progress. You can try it for free at freestylelibre.us. Offer available for people who qualify. Visit myfreestyle.us to see all terms and conditions. Certain exclusions apply. For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
Lemonada.
Hello, we're here for More Happier, a podcast where we get more of the Happier podcast. It's weekend listening with a happier vibe. And Elizabeth, today we are revisiting our very first episode ever. It has been 10 years. How bonkers is that?
Yes, Gretchen, I cannot believe it. It's very exciting.
Okay, so when we did our first episode, so I was in a studio and you were in a studio, right?
Yes, I went to a studio in Culver City. I think it might have even been in some sort of NPR studio.
Oh, right. Yeah. And I was at Panoply and we were super nervous. And I think we rehearsed the whole thing in advance. And then I remember on the way home, I called you and we debriefed for like an hour. How did it go?
Yes.
What did we think? What were we thinking while it was happening? What was the vibe like? We were super excited, but we were definitely doing something that we had never done before. It was a lot.
Nor did we know a lot about podcasts. They were just getting popular. I had listened to Serial, and that was it, pretty much. And Gretchen, technically, I think this was a pilot episode. We did a pilot episode, and then Andy Bowers, who's the person who had approached you initially, said, well, you can do this, and then you'll decide if we're moving forward. And we were so at the edge of our seat waiting to hear what Andy said. And then he's like, oh, yeah, let's start recording next week. He was like, and we'll use that episode as your first episode.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Jacob Weisberg and then Andy Bowers. And I said to Andy once, I'm calling you the Wizard of Pods. So you can say, sometimes called the Wizard of Pods. Yeah. He gave us so much great advice. And Elizabeth, it's interesting. I mean, looking back, it was such a different time. So many things have changed. And yet we still have the segments that we had then. We've added segments. For instance, do you remember that it was your idea to add the hacks?
I do. I remember I was working on The Family, which was a show. And I remember being in the office and being on the phone with you and suggesting that.
Yes.
And saying, yeah, I think we should do one every week. I don't know what gave me that idea, but I remember
we had done a few, and we always got such a big response from listeners, but it hadn't occurred to me that we could just then plug it in. But like, try this at home. That was the first segment, and it was an every week segment from the beginning. That was an idea that was just part of the core idea of the show, which is if you're going to make your life happier, healthier, more productive, or more creative, we're going to give you something that you could try at home tomorrow. That was our idea.
And Gretchen, I remember we were both in Kansas City and we took a long walk in Loose Park and talked about different segment ideas and what they could be called.
Yes.
And I think that might be where we came up with Demerits and Gold Stars and the phrase, try this at home, which I think you had already come up with. And then I said I thought it was good.
I remember I had a piece of paper in my pocket and I would jot down notes as we would have ideas. Because if there's one thing we've learned as writers, Elizabeth, what is the one thing we've learned as writers?
Write it down because you will forget it.
Yes. There's an amazing scene in Mad Men that's all about how awful it is to have a great idea and then not write it down and forget it. Well, and then also know yourself better. I remember talking to Elizabeth about, is this an idea that we would have enough material for it to be a recurring segment? And then the more we talked about it, we were like, oh, this is great. We have a million ideas for Know Yourself Better.
Yes. And then I remember that we wanted to have a consistency every week.
Yes.
Right from the beginning, you were like, we are doing this every week. We are taking no breaks ever. And Gretchen, in 10 years, we have never missed an episode. I will say I missed one episode when I was shooting a pilot in New York, and Eliza, I believe, filled in for me.
But it's kind of extraordinary, especially given how unpredictable your job is. It's extraordinary that has happened so few times. And yes, we have never missed our Wednesday episode. And there was only the one time when we did it on a Thursday, right? Because that's when we switched to Lemonade, and it was going to be January 1st. And they're like, let's not make this switch on a national holiday. So we're like, okay. No, and I have to say, I feel really proud about that. But you know, it's funny though, with doing it every week, for me, it's easier to do something regularly than to stop and start. And I do think that even though sometimes it's hard to manage and we have to think ahead and plan ahead, it's just part of what we do.
Yes. And luckily, Chuck, our executive producer, is very flexible. And we're all flexible with the timing.
We're all flexible. Yeah.
But I also like, Gretchen, that I do feel we've evolved over the years. Part of what has evolved so much is our listener input. When we started, and we've said this before, we had no idea how much the listeners would contribute and be a part of the podcast.
No, that is 100% correct. We just couldn't foresee that. And that has probably been one of the greatest unexpected pleasures of it, is how much we've learned and gained, and just the observations, the resources.
The humor.
It's always fun to see what people are interested in. We are often not very good at predicting, and that's part of what keeps it fun for us.
Yes. Yeah. Keeps it fresh.
Well, we hope you enjoy this look back. And it goes without saying, this episode was taped in 2015 because we are replaying it for our 10th anniversary. So this happened in February 2015.
Enjoy.
Hello, and welcome to Happier, a podcast that gives you strategies and tips for how to build happier habits into your daily life. We discuss cutting-edge science, the wisdom of the ages, lessons from pop culture, and our own experiences. I'm Gretchen Rubin, a writer who studies happiness and good habits. I'm in New York City, and with me is my sister of the sage, Elizabeth Kraft, who's my happiness guinea pig and questioner.
That's me, Elizabeth Kraft, a TV writer and producer living in LA, and Gretchen makes me happier, even if it's against my will.
This week, we'll talk about the 1-minute rule as a habit that helps to keep clutter under control, whether you're a satisficer or a maximizer when making decisions, and how to avoid a common happiness stumbling block.
We'll also answer a listener question and reveal our happiness fails and gold stars for the week.
We're going to start with a suggestion you can try at home, something small and manageable that will actually make a difference about how you feel each day. And our first try this at home tip is the 1-minute rule.
The 1-minute rule is exactly what it sounds like. If you have a task that can be done in less than 1 minute, do it without delay.
And this has been so helpful for me because I realize that if I just hang up my coat instead of dumping it on a chair, if I rip open a letter and read it and throw it away, if I answer an email that, is a one-word answer without postponing it, then those little things don't become the scum on the surface of life. Yeah. I mean, a friend of mine told me that her apartment went from being a total wreck to being quite tidy without much effort. And another friend said his productivity shut up because when he got rid of all those little things, then he felt like he could do the bigger things.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I have to say your 1-minute rule has actually improved my marriage. Because as you know, I'm extremely messy if left to my own devices.
But I will say in your defense, you're not dirty, you're just messy.
Well, thank you for that. Whereas Adam, my husband, is very neat. If you go into his closet, all the shirts are together, all the pants, everything's perfectly arranged. And one of the things that we used to fight about a lot was me being messy. And so once I instituted this 1-minute rule, I started putting dishes in the dishwasher, putting in laundry, changing the laundry, scooping up that huge pile of clothes that accumulates next to my bed every week. And so it has, relieved some of that tension. Although if you asked him, he would probably say I could do much, much better. But it's something.
It's something. And the thing that's nice about it is that it's small and it's gradual. Like you don't have to, spend the entire weekend cleaning out your closet. You don't have to take like a week of your vacation time to deal with the garage. It's just something that you fit into like the little bits of your day. Like, you've got 1 minute before you have to head out the door and, you've got your keys in your hand and you're just like, okay, I could just do one thing. And so that stuff gets done without a lot of effort. It's not hard to work it into your daily routine.
Yeah, and I think of each of these things as an accomplishment of the day.
Oh, yeah.
So it sort of builds up the number of accomplishments per day.
Well, and it's funny because so many people, like whenever I talk to them about happiness, something that's really surprising is how often people say that outer order contributes to inner calm, really more than it should. I mean, like, why does having like a messy kitchen counter or a messy desk make you feel weighed down or like you have no creativity or no energy? But over and over, people say, when you clear those surfaces and get rid of stuff and put stuff away so you can find it, you get this weird surge of energy and cheer. Like a friend of mine said, I cleaned up my fridge and now I know I can switch careers. And I knew exactly what she meant. And if that's an illusion, it's a helpful illusion. There's just something about doing that, taking that time that does make people feel like they're more in control.
I definitely feel more in control when you come to my house and clean out my closets for me. I will give you that.
That is my favorite thing to do.
I know. Which is a nice quality in an older sister.
Well, let us know if you do try this at home and how the 1 minute rule works for you.
Gretchen's on Twitter at Gretchen Rubin, and I'm at Elizabeth Kraft.
Connect on the Gretchen Rubin Facebook page or drop us an email.
Our email address is podcast@GretchenRubin.com. Gretch, I love that one of the first things we talked about was the 1 minute rule, because this is a tool that still comes up all the time. I still use it in my everyday life.
Yes. And Elizabeth, you are still happily married. So I can continue to believe that my 1 minute rule has continued to help contribute for that. It is funny, though. It still comes up, even though it was in the very first episode we ever did.
Yep.
Now we'll be right back with more from our very first episode.
Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard, based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
We all want to help set up our children for success, but sometimes a child is struggling at school with a specific subject or needs help with homework, and we don't quite know how to help. IXL Learning is an online learning program for kids. It covers math, language arts, science, and social studies. IXL is designed to help them really understand and master topics in a fun way with positive feedback. My daughter, Eleanor, really struggled with math. She had to do a lot of extra work to catch up, and IXL is exactly the kind of thing that would have helped her catch up and master difficult material.
IXL is used in 26 of the top 100 school districts in the U.S. Make an impact on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And Happier with Gretchen Rubin listeners can get an exclusive 20% off IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/happier. Visit IXL.com/happier to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price. And we're back with more of our very first episode of Happier with Gretchen Rubin.
Elizabeth, here's a question to help you know yourself better. When it comes to making decisions, are you a maximizer or a satisficer?
Well, maybe you should start by defining those words. I'm thinking a normal person probably has no idea what you're talking about.
It hasn't been indoctrinated the way you have.
Exactly.
So yes, these are real words, and it has to do with how you make decisions. Maximizers want to make the maximum best decision. They want to make the optimal decision. If they're choosing a tent or an apartment or a pasta sauce, they want to make the best possible choice. Satisficers, and that's a word that's a combination of satisfy and suffice, are people who
they have a certain criteria, and that criteria could be very high, but once it's met, then they move on. They don't have to feel like they have the best pasta sauce at the best price. They just have to feel like they have what they wanted. And what's interesting is that maximizers are a lot less happy with their decisions. They have more regrets. They don't feel as good about their choices. They're anxious about it. So what do you think you are? Are you more of a maximizer or a satisficer?
I call myself a recovering maximizer.
Oh, yeah, and a lot of people are a mix of both. Yeah, so you're a recovering maximizer.
Yeah, because I think I used to think I should be a maximizer, partly because, our mother, who I call the Martha Stewart of Kansas City,
yes.
is the ultimate maximizer. She'll spend months looking at fabric, paint choices,
coffee tables,
Christmas ornaments, et cetera, et cetera.
And she loves it.
And she's got wonderful taste. For instance, years ago, I moved into an apartment, and I used a cardboard box turned over as my coffee table,
which is totally typical, by the way.
Yeah, which I just couldn't handle picking a coffee table. There were so many out there, and of course, everyone would make fun of me for this. So I finally said to my writing partner, Sarah, I just wish someone would buy me a coffee table. I wouldn't care what it was. Right. It's just once I have it, I know that I won't ever think about it again, but I can't commit.
Right. If you just had a coffee table that worked as a coffee table, that would be enough. Your criteria would be met. Yeah.
Yes. It was just the existential dilemma of choosing it. So Sarah, being the good writing partner that she is, for my birthday, went to a thrift store and bought me an extremely ugly coffee table, which I used for, I think, around 5 years, probably until I got married. I will say in my defense that people would come to my apartment and sort of feel nostalgic for the cardboard box. I think it made them feel good about themselves. But anyway, to this point, I've had blank walls my whole life. Nothing on the walls, again, unless Mom visited and put something on the wall. This is frustrating for my husband, and I am trying and have, I think, in recent years become more of a satisficer where I realize it doesn't have to be the perfect art. We just need something on the wall.
Right. There's this great line from Voltaire where he says, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And it's like, don't let the desire for the perfect coffee table or the perfect painting mean that you get nothing. Because if you just satisfice, you have the satisfaction of moving on. Research suggests that satisficers are happier. They're more contented with their decisions. They don't use so much time and energy. They don't burn it up coming to those decisions, and they have less regret about the decisions they've made. And so really it seems like for happiness, satisficing is a better choice.
Well, I have to disagree on one point, which is that our mom, for example, who I said is the ultimate maximizer, I think she really enjoys the process of making those decisions. Right. She enjoys those hours she spends.
Yeah.
So I think if you are a person who loves the journey of choices, it's good to be a maximizer. But for most of us who are just interested in the destination, it's better to be a satisficer.
Right. I think that's a very good point. For you and me, it's hard to imagine enjoying the journey, but clearly others do. All right. In our next segment, we're going to talk about stumbling blocks. That's our name for the small, seemingly innocuous things that get in our way when we're trying to make our lives happier, healthier, and more productive. Today's stumbling block is a loophole. Now, a loophole is when you're trying to keep some kind of good habit, but you've come up with a justification why just this once you're off the hook, that for some reason something doesn't count. And this loophole I call the one coin loophole. And it gets its name from a classical teaching story, which is called The Argument of the Growing Heap. And this teaching story goes like this. Are you rich if you have 10 coins? You'd say no. Mm-hmm. If 10 coins aren't enough, what if you add 1 coin? What if you add another coin? Finally, you have to say that you can't be rich unless 1 coin can make you rich. Now, this has huge implication for habits because just as in the story, 1 coin by 1 coin, a person becomes rich. It's only by the addition of the 1 coin that eventually you get to the growing heap. Mm-hmm. With a habit, it's only by 1 trip to the gym and 1 trip to the gym and 1 trip to the gym that you form the habit of going to the gym and that you get all the benefits, all the riches that are going to come from going to the gym. So the one coin loophole is when you say, well, what's one coin? One coin doesn't make a difference.
Right.
So Elizabeth, have you ever caught yourself invoking this loophole, which is very true? I mean, that's what's dangerous about it. It's very true.
Yeah, I mean, I invoke it all over the place. You know,
it is a great loophole. It works every day. It works every time.
Absolutely, every single day. You know, the one that's I'm really having trouble with it at the time right now is, I'm trying. I won't say I'm trying. I'm writing a novel on the side.
Right. Yeah.
And
all your free time.
And that is something where, it's so easy to say, well, if I don't write a paragraph right now, what does it matter? I have to write 300 more pages of this thing. I'm on page 4.
Right. Or it's going to take a year. What does it matter if I skip
what
one
is
morning?
One day
Yeah.
in a year? Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas, but I know that if I keep writing those paragraphs, or if I get up and write 2 pages at 6 a.m., it's going to add up and I'm going to get to page 300. And now I will tell you that knowing that we were going to be discussing the one coin loophole actually got me to work on my novel this week.
There you go.
So, because I didn't want you to bust me on it. So this week
I am a happiness bully.
You are, yes, the ultimate happiness bully. So it worked, but it's hard. It's easy to fall into that. But
it's like you realize like the only way that you're actually doing something is by doing it in any particular situation. And I think this is a problem because people will often shift. They will decide, well, today, like, yes, it's true that I want to spend all this time with my family and it's a really high priority for me, but not today. Mm-hmm. Because what's today? What difference does today make? But it's only by doing it today and today and today and today that you build up. That's how you become rich. That's how you get something accomplished.
It's also, I'll add, how you build stamina. And because I think a lot of the reason people don't do things, at least for me, is fear. I'm afraid my book is going to be terrible. That's why I don't want to write it.
Right.
If I actually just do it, it builds the muscle, and then you keep doing it. And so, like, that's definitely true for the gym.
No, it's such a good point, too, because it's like if you do something only rarely and it's like a big production every time you do, you want it to be good. You want it like, wow, today's writing has to go well. Today at the gym, I have to really push myself. Like, everything has to be really quality. But if you do it all the time, it's like any particular one. You're like, well, today it was sort of lame, but I'll keep doing it tomorrow. So it takes the pressure off of it. But it's funny, like, sometimes people will use this like as a weapon. A friend of mine lost like 70 pounds. Wow. And so she said somebody in her office like used the one coin loophole to undermine her. She would say, oh, you've been so good. What's one cupcake? Okay.
Right. It's like, well, one cupcake by cupcake, I gained 70 pounds.
Right. And cupcake by cupcake, I lost it. And so it's so true that it's easy to invoke, but it can quickly spiral out of control. Okay, on upcoming shows, we'll be answering some of your questions. But since this is episode 1, we don't have any calls yet.
So instead, we're answering a question posted to us from Gretchen's Facebook page. The question is, does checking Facebook make people feel happier and connected or more lonely and sad?
Okay, good question.
Good question. Funny thing for me is I'm not even on Facebook.
And why not?
So
but why?
I don't know if I deserve to answer this.
But why have you made that choice?
At the beginning, it was because there were just certain people in my past who I did not want to reach me or find, or, know where I was. Nothing dangerous, just people I didn't care to speak to. And
I can vouch for that. There's no secret crimes.
But over time, it just seems so overwhelming. Like, I see now why Facebook is valuable because, for instance, my husband is on it and he'll tell me something that a good friend of mine is doing, such as moving to Italy, that I have no idea about. And, he'll know what her kids look like. And I don't know because I haven't seen them for, a year. So I'm realizing that it's making me feel like I'm out of the loop and that I am not connected to people. So I would like to join, but I feel overwhelmed by jumping in now. It seems so late in the game.
Right. Well, and that's why it makes people happier. Is I think, ancient philosophers and contemporary scientists agree that if you had to say, what is the secret to happiness? Probably the best answer is relationships. So anything that helps people stay in touch, to maintain relationships, is something that's probably going to make you happier. But the thing about Facebook is that, like many things in life, it's an amplifier of human nature. It makes good things better and bad things worse. And so if you're the kind of person who really gets upset if you compare yourself to others, or if you have relationships in the past, like, a tendency to be kind of a slight stalker, there's things about it that can amplify the negative as well as the positive. And it's interesting, there's a lot of research right now. Scientists are really interested in what is its effect on us? How is it making us happy or not? But I think just for most people in everyday life, I think your experience, the one that it really makes it a lot easier to stay in touch with people. Like, everybody's so busy, it's hard to pick up the phone or make plans. And anything that makes it easier is
I think you just need to remember, I know I will, should I embark upon the Facebook, journey, is that people present, I think a lot of people, their fantasy selves.
Yes.
And
yes,
so
yes, that's true.
Next to all of these fantasy selves, you can feel like your life is not measuring up.
Right.
So yes. I will definitely have to guard myself against that, because I could spend a lot of time beating myself up over, the fact that I don't have a garden, growing my own vegetables and all of that.
Right. Your kids aren't trilingual and all that business. Now, that's a very good point. It's like you have to use it. It's like everything. It's a good servant and a bad master.
And we will be right back with more from our very first episode of Happier. This new year, why not let Audible expand your life by listening? Explore over 1 million audiobooks, podcasts, and exclusive Audible originals that'll inspire and motivate you. Just open the app and tap into your well-being with advice and insight from leading influencers, experts, and professionals. Whatever your focus or interest, there's a listen for it on Audible. You'll find titles on better health, including personal fitness, nutrition, and relaxation.
Yeah, Gretch, I am all about Audible. I cannot get enough audiobooks. Right now, I'm listening to Colored Television by Danzy Senna, and I am obsessed with it. Plus, on Audible, you can find insight and expert advice on health, relationships, career, finance, so much more. Start listening today. Sign up for a free 30-day trial at audible.com/happier. Dell Technologies is celebrating with anniversary savings on their most popular tech. For a limited time only, save on select next-gen PCs like the XPS 16 powered by Intel Core, Ultra processors, and more. Unleash more possibilities with cutting-edge systems, our most advanced features, and great prices. Plus, curate your dream setup with deals on select monitors, mice, and more must-have electronics and accessories.
When you shop online at Dell.com/deals, you'll have access to state-of-the-art technology to match your forward-thinking spirit and free shipping on everything. Anniversary savings await you for a limited time only at Dell.com/deals. That's Dell.com/deals.
Welcome back to More Happier. Today we are revisiting our very first episode in honor of our 10th anniversary.
To wrap up the show, Elizabeth and I are going to get even more personal. First, one of us is going to give ourselves a happiness demerit for a mistake we made this week that affected our happiness.
Then, so we don't leave you on a down note, one of us will award a gold star to something or someone we think deserves to be recognized.
You'd think that just like the average person would not have to make a big effort not to email while talking on the phone to the love of her life. And yet this is something that I really have to make a special effort. Like, do not email while I'm talking on the phone to Jamie. And the other day I was just, and it was all, I'm sure when there's that pause before somebody answers, because that they're like trying to like slightly rewinding it in their brain. And and then he started answering his email. I could hear him clattering away. So there we were, both totally ignoring each other, clattering away on our keyboards. And it wasn't like a companionable, nice, like, let's sit here together and answer our emails together. It's just like,
you were both sneaking it.
Yeah, it was just so rude. I was like, okay. But, okay, so we'll do better next time.
And I have to ask you, though, I can't help myself. Are you emailing people when I'm talking to you on the phone?
No, with you, never.
And I would never do it to you either, ever.
Never.
When I ask you to repeat what you just said, it's because I really want to think it over, not because I wasn't listening.
Right. And it's instantaneous always. But okay, so now on a happier note, let's go to the gold star to give.
My gold star this week goes to my treadmill desk.
I love a treadmill desk.
Yes. I don't know if everyone knows what a treadmill desk is. It's what it sounds like. It's a desk on which you put your computer and your phone and your pens. And it's underneath is a treadmill. And you walk while you write or talk on the phone or in my case, break story for television shows.
Right.
So, and I have to give you credit, Gretchen, because this was your gift to me a few years ago.
My genius idea.
Recently, a few years ago, whenever, for my 40th birthday. And I'd been off of it for a few weeks because I just hadn't been in the office. And so I got back on it this week, and I had 2 5.5-mile days.
Oh, my gosh. So just like in the middle of your work day, you're walking 5 miles. Without
trying. And I have to tell you, especially because as you know, I'm a type 1 diabetic. So keeping in motion really helps me keep my blood sugar under control. And even aside from that, it just makes me happier. And, I even got, my writing partner even got one because she didn't want to sit around, she said like a slug while I was, walking away during a meeting. So I recommend the treadmill desk to anyone who has the space for it.
But and this is the thing where like you live in LA, so you have space. I live in New York. I can't. I tried so hard to figure out a way to get a treadmill desk, but if I put it in my office, I would not be able to open the door. So it is, and I'm so sad. I really envy you. Your treadmill desk.
It's a great sadness in your life, but you can enjoy mine.
I enjoy vicariously. And that's it for the first episode of Happier. Remember, try this at home, the 1-minute rule, and let us know if it's helpful.
Our producer is Henry Malofsky. Thanks to Laura Mayer and Andy Bowers at Panoply. Please let us know what you think of the show. Gretchen's on Twitter at Gretchen Rubin, and I'm at Elizabeth Kraft. Our email address is podcast@gretchenrubin.com.
And if you like the show, please be sure to tell a friend and subscribe to us in iTunes.
Until next week, I'm Elizabeth Kraft.
And I'm Gretchen Rubin. Thanks for joining us. Onward and upward.
Well, we hope you're feeling happier after this revisited episode. It has been so fun to go back, listen to that episode from 10 years ago, our very first episode. But Elizabeth, one thing that makes me happier is you can tell how happy we are and how excited we were to be launching this podcast.
Yes, and it still is like that, Gretchen. Whenever I think about the podcast, I get a jolt of happiness. It's one of the best things in my life. I'm so grateful for it, and I'm excited for another 10 years.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much to all you listeners for being part of the Happier community. We are so grateful that you keep listening, that you send in your tips and ideas and observations and questions. Onward and upward to another 10 years.
From the Onward Project.